now is former White House press secretary under President Trump, America First Action senior advisor, and author of The Briefing: Politics, the Press, and the President. Sean Spicer is here. Sean, good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
You bet. Good morning.
And there are so many issues in terms of this China deal. It feels like the president has handled this well in terms of, making sure America understands the issues around the Chinese relationship and sticking to it.
I mean, we've seen decades and multiple administrations have countless meetings and new organizations and the strategic economic dialogues of the past that have sought to tackle many of these issues. This president's taking them head on. If you look at the amount of investment that China's making, in particular in our agriculture sector, it's huge. But as well as dealing with those other issues that you just mentioned, currency manipulation, intellectual property, tech transfer, those are all big issues in terms of market access and other barriers to access for U.S. companies into that growing market. So being able to tackle it in a constructive way that benefits U.S. manufacturers, service providers, and agricultural growers is a huge win for the United States.
Sean, good morning. Mitch Rochelle. I think where the rubber may meet the road on the China deal will be around enforcement, and you referenced others who've tried it in the past, and I think that's where other trade deals have fallen apart. What are your thoughts on the enforcement side of the thing? And
a deal with China. Didn't they say they were going to buy all that beef a year ago, and then they didn't? They didn't follow through. So do we believe that they'll follow through on any of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the devil's in the detail, right? So there's two issues that have always been the issue. One is the actual follow-through. And then second, as Mitch brought up, the enforcement of other aspects of trade deals that have been made or commitments through memorandum of understanding. So they have been good about the investment in soybeans and other agricultural products. But I think that there needs to be a clear work plan with strict deadlines and points that can be met. So that we can ensure that we're actually doing this. But I don't think that the president's going to agree to something that doesn't have those laid out in a very specific way. Obviously, the people at the negotiating table aren't new to this issue. They understand the past where we've fallen short on follow-through and enforcement. Yeah. So those are going to be important aspects of whatever comes out of this deal.
Yeah, what about this high-stakes summit? We talked China. We're watching the president depart for Vietnam today for this upcoming meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The two are set to meet this Thursday. That's just 8 months after that historic first summit in Singapore. President Trump outlined his expectations yesterday. Listen to this, Sean.
I don't want to rush anybody. I just don't want testing. As long as there's no testing, we're happy. And so we've done really something, I think, very special with respect to North Korea.
You see, I was wondering if he was dampening expectations with that comment there. I just don't want any testing. Yes, we haven't seen any missile testing. The president has moved the ball forward. But, while the president likes to talk about his personal relationship with Kim Jong-un, the truth is there's been no denuclearization, Sean.
No, there hasn't, but there also hasn't been any testing, as the president's pointed out. When we entered this administration, rockets were being fired off on probably close to a weekly basis. That has ceased. And I think that's a huge, not only good step, but I mean, we talk about China and enforcement. This has been something that we can look at and say, okay, there's actually been a pattern of behavior that has stopped. That's a positive thing. But denuclearizing that peninsula for the safety of not just the peninsula and the region, but for the entire world is a huge thing that we have to be very, very diligent about making sure comes out of that before there's any treaty or ending the armistice that dates back to 1953. And the president needs to go into that understanding that while this relationship has clearly proven to benefit us and benefit the region in terms of the testing and the firing of missiles, returning our service members' remains, which is so critical and something that's been overlooked, that if we actually want to take away the sanctions that have been imposed on North Korea, if we want to engage further with them economically or declare an end to the Korean War officially, those things need to have real benchmarks in place in terms of denuclearization and a work product that involves things like inspectors.
Sean, really quick, Mike Block here. How much do you think China is involved implicitly in the back channels ahead of these talks in Vietnam? Do you think that China is exerting pressure on North Korea in some way in terms of what's going to happen at this summit?
Mike, you just put your finger on the million-dollar question, because I think Xi can have a ton of influence on what North Korea does or doesn't do, and that's the million-dollar question. What are they doing to back channel to Chairman Ung what he wants done. I think your point is well taken. I don't know that we know the answer to that at this point.
All right, we will leave it there. Sean, it's great to see you this morning.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you so much. Sean Spicer joining us, President